Intro. Viewed as deadlier than a hydrogen bomb, denying that God authored a book repulses Christian, Islamic, and Jewish fundamentalists. That is because many use the idea of a God-authored book as their religious foundation. Fundamentalism is immovable allegiance to a religious book's inerrant, infallible, exact verbatim inspiration as truly God-authored, interpreted more or less literally. Others, while rejecting verbatim inspiration, contend that God inspired each document. The idea of a God-authored book has been attacked for centuries. Colonialist Ethan Allen and Presidents Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson challenged the Bible's supposedly divine inspiration, while today's challenges are legion. Since Christian and Jewish writings are part of my culture, this is my primary focus. However, I view the Old Testament, actually the Jewish Tanakh or Hebrew Bible, OT, and the Christian New Testament, NT, writings as completely separate books. For familiarity's sake, I sometimes refer to them together as the Bible. If this Bible's purported divine inspiration cannot hold up to logical debate, perhaps a devout believer can show that this idea is not essential before a skeptic refutes it. However, if its divine inspiration is obvious, challenges should be welcome to expose the unreasonableness of skeptics. Widely varying lists of textual contradictions, scientific errors, and other mistakes have been compiled. I've examined such lists, finding that most entries are not really errors, but simple misunderstandings easily explained. Other supposed errors are hard to explain, but reasonable-sounding explanations do surface. Still, other supposed incongruities defy explanation, which seem like truly bogus text. So here is my compilation of text and text comparisons, which I view as indefensible. Genesis specifically. In Genesis 1:16, the moon is called a great light, lamp in the underlying Hebrew text, while our moon has no light of her own and merely reflects our sun. In Genesis 1:29-30, all plants are to be eaten, apparently even poisonous ones. Now the story of Adam and Eve. Eden's serpent is often viewed as Satan before he was cursed, which would contradict the teaching that Satan was an angel before being cursed. If Satan is viewed as merely entering the serpent, then the serpent was cursed through no fault of his own. Supposedly, snakes used to have legs. Having no legs seems calamitous from an uninformed human perspective, but it's now known that snakes' specialized bodies would be disadvantaged from having legs. Also, Genesis's unheard of snake breed ate dust or dirt instead of rodents like other snakes. Although God does not tempt anyone, James 1:13, Genesis chapters 2-3 has God creating the tree of forbidden fruit in close proximity to where Adam and Eve reside, telling them its location, making it attractive, and having them reside in the same locale as the tempter. Is not this like welcoming a drug dealer onto a grade school playground? Although Adam and Eve had a choice to either obey or disobey, what happens when the forbidden fruit tree drops seeds, causing forbidden trees to confusedly sprout amidst acceptable trees? Besides, electricity wasn't discovered yet, which would prevent people from knowing which trees were which if they plucked and or ate at night. Then there is the contradiction between God creating everything good and creating something bad. Everyone coming from Adam and Eve would require brothers and sisters mating to populate Earth, which is condemned by Leviticus 20:17 and Deuteronomy 27:22. Every race coming from the same parents is another insurmountable problem, complicated, contrived, and contradictory explanations notwithstanding. I always enjoy the Genesis creation story, which magnifies God, gives a pleasant alternative to haphazard evolution, and provides fodder for many interesting sermons. But viewing it as historical in our 21st century would discredit Christianity. In Genesis 7, a total worldwide flood envelops Earth up to the mountaintops. This excess of water, far exceeding all our oceans, would be more than enough to permanently knock Earth out of orbit. And only 10 months later, it all dried up. Genesis 8:3-7. Then in Genesis 9:11-16, God creates rainbows as if the laws of light refraction did not previously operate. Besides, over 900,000 people died in a modern flood, probably more than were on Earth when God supposedly said he would never again destroy Earth with a flood. The story of Esau and Jacob, Genesis 25:23 to 34, and chapter 27, starts with twins lacking physical resemblance. The writer apparently lacked knowledge of genetics. Then Jacob receives God's blessings by taking advantage of his brother, violating the command not to defraud, Leviticus 19:13, and by breaking God's command to not bear false witness against thy brother. And Jacob would not be able to secure Esau's birthright anyway. It would simply be one man's word against another's. And by Jacob standing in for Esau to get Isaac's blessing, the blessing would logically have gone to Esau, not Jacob. And if Rebekah could prepare meat, the goat meat, to taste like venison, Esau would not have gained Isaac's favor by providing venison to begin with. Although this story is used to warn against foolishness, it is more often used to promote Jewish racial supremacy. And in Genesis 39:7-12, we not only have a sexually supercharged woman, but one acting out with everything to lose. Fantasizing on the writer's part, perhaps? For the main problem with this scenario, see my videos on Sex Drive. Old Testament in general. The Old Testament apparently contradicts both the New Testament and itself. Jacob says he's seen God face to face, Genesis 32:30. Yet God says, thou cannot see my face, no man shall see me and live, Exodus 33:20. Exodus 24:9-11 and Amos 9:1 say that some men saw God. Yet Jesus said, no man hath seen God at any time, John 1:18. The Old Testament godly are blessed with wealth and children, while New Testament poor and singles are especially blessed. In Exodus 15:3, the Lord is a man of war. But in Romans 15:33, the God of peace be with all. Advocates of peace often quote Isaiah 2:4's beating swords into plowshares, while pro-war advocates quote Joel 3:10's beating plowshares into swords. Endless circumgyration ensues. In Deuteronomy 24:16, children won't be put to death for their fathers, while Isaiah 14:21 says to prepare slaughter for children for their father's iniquity. There is a three-way disagreement on what constitutes Israel's 12 tribes. The Numbers lists Joshua 19 and 21 and Revelation 7 each have 12 by adding or subtracting Levi, Joseph, or Dan. Some passages have God creating the universe in 6 days, and afterward everything is very good. Other passages have a long period of nebulous history where angels rebelled and became demonic. In Proverbs, wine is terrible, while in Song of Solomon, wine is great. 2 Kings 2:11 clearly says that Elijah ascended into heaven. Yet Jesus said, no man hath ascended into heaven, only Jesus himself. John 3:13. Earth will perish in Psalms 102:25-26 and Hebrews 1:10-11, while earth will abide forever in Psalms 78:69 and Ecclesiastes 1:4. God supposedly sent an evil spirit to trouble Saul. 1 Samuel 16:14-23, while throughout the Bible we are to have no contact with dark forces and demons are cast out. Since children mock Elisha the prophet's baldness, 2 Kings 2:23-24, he curses them, sending 2 she-bears, as if the bear's sex made any difference, which tear apart 42 of them. Yet Jesus said about his persecutors who had him crucified, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:33-34. Judges 4 has a woman as an authority over men, while another woman kills a man, which seems to contradict the tenor of this male-dominated Bible. Besides, it has Deborah leading the military because Barak is cowardly, while in Hebrews 11:32, Barak is heroic and Deborah is not even mentioned. 1 Samuel 2:8, Job 38:46, and Psalms 93:1 suppose that earth is stationary with the foundation, a theme of numerous mythological tales, namely Atlas with earth on his back and earth resting upon tortoises and elephants. 1 Kings 7:23 has a circle of 10 cubits in diameter, measuring 30 cubits around, when it should be over 31. The ratio of a circle circumference to its diameter is approximately 3.1416, not 3. Judges 9, 8-15 apparently plagiarizes Aesop's fable, The Logs and the Olive, since the original form makes perfect sense, while the Bible version misses the point. Besides, many such texts strikingly resemble discounted extra-biblical stories such as Adam and Eve's adventures in lost books of the Bible and Song of Solomon's amazing resemblance to ancient Egyptian love poetry. Why would God ape man in clandestine fashion instead of radiating his otherworldly message as a transcending beacon? Artistic license was fashionable. Authors often created stories that reflected what they thought might have occurred. As for Jonah, being inside a great fish for 3 days would undoubtedly cause drowning, suffocation, or being dissolved by stomach acid. And since Jonah was shaded by a gourd, it must have been gigantic. And since a worm devoured the gourd while ignoring its leaves, in a day, it must have been a giant worm which do not exist in nature. Jonah 4, 6-7. Fictional characters were honored and considered real in a certain sense because they are a product of the human mind, which is a product of God. Painstaking explanations supposedly rectify all apparent mistakes and defend the notion of a God-authored book. Yet if a friend writes you a message, must it be studied for weeks to understand it? Would not a critical warning sign be crystal clear? The Bible has so many difficulties that it's bewildering. Since God is not the author of confusion, 1 Corinthians 14:33, logically he neither authored nor inspired the Hebrew Bible. Notably, New Testament scripture seems to be free from contradiction and scientific errors. Rejecting the notion of a supernaturally inspired Bible does not necessarily align one with unbelievers. Atheists' disbelief in Santa's flying reindeer does not mean you must do the opposite and believe. All groups have occasionally held erroneous ideas. Stay tuned for part 2.